Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and executive chairman of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast, and in turn, continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
Some of my other clients, honestly, they've admitted to me they don't even really care about the return. They're here because we're providing clean electricity in markets that need to participate in the energy transition.
Investing in clean energy infrastructure in emerging markets. It sounds altruistic, but it's also kind of risky from an investor standpoint. Well, today's company is demonstrating that sometimes doing the right thing can also be incredibly lucrative.
Each of these portfolios has been selected by my team and I because we felt that we discovered an opportunity for oversized returns, especially as it relates to the emerging markets in Brazil, Latin America, and South Africa.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. Today's guest is Mike Silvestrini, co-founder and managing partner of Energea, a U.S.-based renewable energy investment platform. Mike's a seasoned renewable energy professional who has played a central role in developing over 500 solar projects across the U.S., Brazil, and Africa, contributing meaningfully to the global transition to clean energy. Prior to Energea, Mike co-founded and served as CEO of Green Skies Renewable Energy, one of the country's largest commercial and industrial solar firms, before his exit in 2016. And outside the company, he serves on the board of Big Life Foundation, which protects 1.6 million acres of wilderness in East Africa, and his work supports community-based conservation initiatives that preserve biodiversity in the region. Let's enter the arena with Mike Silvestrini. How you guys started this platform is really cool because you're friends that go way back a long way. Maybe, talk about what you saw in the marketplace that didn't exist and like how you guys got going.
Yeah, for sure. So Chris Sattler is my childhood buddy. We both grew up in Connecticut here together in a small rural town. I'm still there.
Where?
I'm in Chester, Connecticut, but we grew up one town over in Haddam, Connecticut.
Okay. Awesome.
You've heard of that?
Yeah, well, I'm from Norwalk, so usually I don't even know where the person is I'm interviewing, but it's good to know we're in the same state at least.
Nice. Yeah, so we're two HK guys, class of 1998.
There you go.
And we grew up hanging out together, and, after high school, we went our own ways. Chris went to UConn. I went on a flurry of different universities and stuff, pieced together sort of an undergraduate degree and mixed in a lot of travel. And then somewhere in our mid-20s, both he and I started energy companies. Different kinds of energy companies. I started a solar energy business, and Chris started a retail energy business. So my business was all about building power plants using solar technology. His business was all about selling power to energy users.
Yeah.
And we were both fascinated by world travel. We both had a lot of common interests. And as those businesses started to get successful, we got back together to do some nonprofit work in Kenya. We both really loved the wildlife out there and had visited Kenya together on a guy's safari trip years ago. And we just really enjoyed that work, and we wound up participating in a nonprofit called Big Life, which you said in your introduction.
Yeah.
So Chris and I were hanging out in Kenya when we both sold our businesses at the same time. So we started them at the same time, we ran them, and we sold them at the same time. Just happened to be on this parallel path.
Yeah.
And after exiting those businesses, we decided that we wanted to invest together. So we created Energea originally kind of to invest our own capital from the proceeds of those first success stories.
Yeah.
And we knew what we wanted to invest in Brazilian solar because we had been talking about that for years. And our first mission was to go and invest in some solar power plants in Brazil. And that's what we did under the banner of Energea. We also invested in a pair of hydropower plants, but we're really solar guys, in our soul. And by the end of it, we had accumulated this huge portfolio of investable inventory, much more so than Chris or I could fund. So we expanded that to be friends and family, and there was still too much inventory, so we had to expand it yet again to really invite any investor who wants to participate in the investments we select can come and invest alongside Chris and I at energea.com.
And, switching to Africa, it took me until I was 61 years old to get to Africa, or maybe 60 years old. It really is a religious experience, and I'm like a jaded, skeptical person. And I got there and I was just like, holy cow, this place is like, it's like nothing else in the world as far as I'm concerned. And it changed your life.
That's right. Yes, somewhere along the way, I ended up doing a stint in the Peace Corps in West Africa.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of different versions of Africa. It's a massive continent.
Yeah.
But these days, I spend a lot of time in Kenya, around that wildlife. And then I also go to Cape Town and Johannesburg, South Africa all the time. I just came back from a couple months there with my family, scouring the marketplace for deals and investment opportunities and turning it into an opportunity for my kids to experience Africa at a young age.
How about maybe describe the platform? Because it almost seems like as it gets going and cranking over the coming years, it's kind of like a flywheel, right? Where you've got investors and you get deals, and better deals attract capital, attracts more investors. Like, talk about how the platform actually works, because the website is great.
Thanks. Yeah, we needed to create some plumbing, is the way I look at it, is the architecture that allows the simple opportunity for people to invest.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea, is that I want something that seems so easy, right? Like any individual wants to invest in solar power. They go to energea.com, they click a couple buttons, and there they are. I wanted that experience to be as user-friendly as possible. But there's a lot of regulatory hurdles and legal challenges, and it's not easy to do that because I have solar power plants all over the world, and trying to take that and convert it into a simple user experience is really kind of the magic of Gray Reinhardt, our CTO. He's just done a fantastic job of taking something complex and turning it into a simple user experience. And there's an app that accompanies that website that's even easier still.
Yep.
And we think that lowering that barrier to entry is going to chum the water and let more people into this asset class, which, energy infrastructure is critical. We need to get more capital directed towards energy infrastructure for many different reasons, but we're trying to make that easier than ever before, because it turns out not a lot of individual investors have energy infrastructure in their portfolios, or very little of it.
Yeah. When I heard about you guys and I heard about solar, I immediately thought like very speculative or whatever, but you're doing deals almost like with utility type characteristics and very steady returns that are kind of indexed to inflation and stuff like that. Maybe describe like an example of like a couple of deals that, an individual retail investor might have the opportunity to get into that they otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah. So our inventory is very broad and diverse.
Yeah.
It ranges from projects that may look riskier, like smaller C&I or commercial and industrial projects in South Africa, all the way up to, Amazon being an off-taker of a large utility scale project in Texas that we're working on, to Eversource, the local utility company here, being an off-taker of ours. So there's quite a range, but where we make real money for our clients is tackling projects that are not a good fit for institutional finance.
Yeah.
If you're going to build a massive utility scale project in the southwestern US, there's probably some pension money or some cheaper form of capital that's going to be a better fit for that project. It's a large single check writing opportunity, and that's a good fit for those guys. But the margins are going to be pretty lean there. And individuals don't really want lean margins. I'm competing against real estate and Bitcoin and other types of things that I had to pull capital from those other options and bring it into renewables. So we need like double-digit returns in order to be exciting enough to capture the attention of your typical retail investor. And the way that we generate those types of returns is bringing capital to places that are otherwise capital starved. That's why we work in emerging markets. One of the reasons why we also like the currency diversification. But generally, you take a place like Brazil, there's not a lot of capital there pursuing various niches of solar energy opportunities. We like community solar in Brazil. So we have thousands of individual energy customers buying power from plants that we own and operate. And we think it's a great credit story. The portfolio has performed extremely well over the last 5 years. And, we're in the middle double digits for steel in the ground power infrastructure, which is kind of a rare combination of characteristics.
I was going to say that's super impressive. And if I go to the website and I sign on to an investment or a portfolio, what's the minimum I can put in? Like, what's the gamut on the investment size?
Yeah, so basically it's $100 minimum.
Yeah.
Because it's like a little bit more than zero. I don't know why we even chose 100, because the idea is that anybody can invest at any level. And since we're so digitized, there's no extra effort on my side to manage additional investors.
Yep.
Whether it's 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 investors, it's kind of all being architected through this software that we built. So no skin off my back to add more investors. And some people want to start off small and then grow over time as they get to experience the returns. They get on more webinars, they are receiving reporting, getting more comfortable with us as a manager, and then they gradually increase that. Or maybe somebody starts off small because that's what they have at that time.
Yeah.
And they're interested in adding renewable energy to their portfolio. I wish we could expand our investor base to be the exceptionally small investor. Like, I have a driver in South Africa when I go there. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he's from Zimbabwe. You know, he's become friends with myself and my family over repeated visits. And I taught him about investing. And he's actually, this is a very hardworking individual. He's moved his family up several pegs of the totem over his one lifespan.
Yeah.
And he wants to invest, but he thinks it's kind of ridiculous to invest when he's as broke as he is. And I say it's never ridiculous. Whatever 5 or 10% is for you is money you should be saving. At every level, there's not really products made for individual investors that are that small. Yeah. And even people kind of look at me cockeyed when I say we have $100 investment. Why not? Why not just open the door to anybody who wants to participate? It's as useful to any individual and scaled for their needs.
Yeah. And I think those that visit the site and invest, they can buy portfolios, is it? Like by country or region, like Brazil, US, South Africa.
That's right.
Most recently, Latin America. Maybe just talk about those portfolios, the composition, and particularly Latin America, which I think is pretty new.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, each of these portfolios has been selected by my team and I because we felt that we discovered an opportunity for oversized returns, especially as it relates to the emerging markets in Brazil, Latin America, and South Africa. The U.S. is there because we felt that we needed it.
Yeah.
I don't think I can make oversized returns in the U.S., to be honest, and I don't think I have any particular advantage here. I've been a solar professional in the United States for almost 20 years now. I grew a pretty good-sized business. My customer base has been the likes of Target and Amazon and Walmart. So, we know how to do this here.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say we have any special advantage. The advantage of the U.S. portfolio is simply the fact that it's comfortable and familiar to my investors. It's denominated in dollars.
Maybe lower return, lower risk.
At least that's how we perceive it. And I look at it as we're making a cocktail of solar investments, and that's sort of the ice in the drink.
Yep.
It's the least flavorful of the things in this cocktail, but it serves a purpose, right?
Yeah.
It does have less risk, primarily in the form of foreign currency exposure. It's dollars straight up.
Yeah.
Whereas those other markets, that's where we think we're uniquely situated to make oversized returns for our clients. And blended together, that's how we get to our lower double digits.
Brazil in particular, right? That's a standout.
Brazil has been a screamer.
Why is that?
Brazil's a really hard place to do business.
Yeah.
The hardest place, much harder than South Africa.
Why is that?
I think it's a combination, like culturally, it's not as business savvy, and like contracts don't mean as much in the Brazilian context as they should.
Yeah.
So, we spend a lot of time in court, but that's okay. Like, that's necessary. You have to be really made of nails to go into Brazil and be successful, but my team is. We've got an office in Rio with 35 Brazilian nationals there who really know the market, obviously, and its language. And so we've been able to participate really well there. We've taken our losses. There's been times when I thought a project was going to be a 20% return, but after all the Brazilian BS, you kind of end up in the 15% range, 16% range. But, I think there's a special place in heaven for investors that get 15s and 16s.
I was going to say.
It's okay, but it's not, it's a tough market. Whereas, South Africa is a little bit more like home.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more stable in the types of projects that we've been doing there. So you never know going into this. We're in Colombia now. Colombia is a very unique place. There's big pockets of Colombia that I wouldn't dare go personally.
Yeah.
But there's also parts of Colombia that are ordinary business opportunities that deserve more access to capital and are willing to trade, high yield interest for that capital.
Yeah.
And we're happy to provide that service. It takes us about 3 or 4 years of studying a market before we make that first investment.
Yeah.
So we got to understand it up and down and backwards, but we get there. And one at a time, and our clients have benefited from that bravery.
Speaking of clients, with their low barrier to entry, Energea has managed to create a pretty expansive, passionate community of investors. And so given the size of the group and the uniqueness of the business, I wondered about Mike and his team's approach to investor relations.
I wish I knew more of them,
Yeah.
but we have thousands and thousands of investors, and I'm so busy on the investment side. I just got back. I've been home. It's May 27th. I've been in the U.S. for about 4 weeks this year.
Oh
So
my God.
the vast majority of my time right now is spent overseas pursuing investment opportunities. And that and many other reasons, I have professionals on our team who really communicate much more frequently with our investor clients.
Yeah.
So most of the time, when I interact with our investors, it's me speaking through a webinar or speaking broadly through an article. I wish I had more feedback, from them. But of course, my investor relations folks do get back to me, say like, here's what they're liking, here's kind of what they're not liking. And we do try to adjust. I always explain it to my guys, like you have the Jeff Bezos strategy. And if you ever read his end of year letters, it's always an obsession over the customer.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he's right? Keep obsessing over the customer and good things are going to happen to your business.
He did something right.
Yeah, exactly. But conversely, you have guys like Steve Jobs who said, the customer doesn't know what he wants yet. You got to build the greatest product ever, and then they'll see, why they need your product. And we have to kind of balance between those two philosophies of obsessing over our customer, listening to everything they have to say and responding to that, improving the user experience to their liking, versus, maybe there's not customers like raising their hand saying, I wish I had more Colombian solar investments in my bag. They're not really. I didn't choose Colombia by listening to my clients.
Yeah.
I chose Colombia by following my expertise and instincts and studying the hell out of it. So it's sort of a balancing act between there. But we have a great customer base. The ones that I've met have been fascinating. There's some really good people who are clients at Energea who are here for a range of reasons. Some of them are here really to compound that dividend yield and are real thoughtful investors. And some of my other clients, honestly, they've admitted to me they don't even really care about the return. They're here because we're providing clean electricity in markets that need to participate in the energy transition. And those both work for me.
Absolutely. How often do you pay dividends to the community?
Every month. So that's how
huge.
often I bill my energy customers.
Yeah.
So every month I send the invoices out for the previous month's energy. The customers pay me. And then I got to pay for the insurance and the operating expenses of these projects. And then that comes back to the United States. And I got to pay some expenses here, SEC, regulatory lawyers, and my own fees. That all gets paid out. And then whatever's left over at the end, we drain to the shareholders of that portfolio every month.
And obviously a huge benefit to retail investors. I know you started a wealth management channel. Maybe talk about that.
Yeah, because on one hand, we want everybody to be able to participate in Energea like we talked about earlier. But there's also this huge bench of professional investors who are looking for access to renewable energy opportunities. And we didn't want to look too weird for them. We didn't want to be offensive to family offices just because we're bending over backwards for our retail investors. So in order to provide sort of two different front doors, one way that anybody in my town could understand the videos that play on energea.com and read the offering circular and get comfortable with that. But then you have certain cut sheets and certain vocabulary that larger, more sophisticated professional investors are used to seeing and experiencing. So now we have sort of both. And you can come to energea.com and click on that wealth button if you want to see Energea's inventory presented in your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Or you can click on the impact or the other buttons on the website to kind of get the stuff that we've intentionally made understandable to the masses.
Yeah, one question, Mike, I wanted to ask you is how you vet deals. Like you've been doing this for so long, you probably had like every trick in the book pulled on you or people, misrepresenting things or whatever. How do you and the team like really dig into something to know that it's worthy of the platform?
So first off, a project could really be broken down into 4 different buckets of thinking. So we have subject matter experts in these 4 categories. There's legal, technical, financial, and something that we call HSEC, which is health, safety, the environment, and community. And that's really important too, because if you want a project that has a nearby, fire department, you got to check out where the fire department is located vis-a-vis your project. And if you want to have a project that's not going to be robbed all the time, you really need that HSEC underwriting component. We didn't have that actually when we first started Energea, got robbed a couple times and then implemented it. So this is sort of continuously growing and evolving. And I'm really obsessed with making a mistake only once.
Yeah, it's a good policy.
Because we're going to make tons of mistakes. We do all the time. But what we're really good at is not repeating them.
Yeah.
So we have software that assists us there. So when we're looking at a project, we're making sure we ask every question that we asked in the past, plus the new questions we learned to ask through mistakes. And then those get added to the underwriting process. So it's like the longer Energea continues to invest, the better and better we are as investors, and the more impossible it is for us to have mistakes when we make those investments. And we're already at a point where mistakes for us are pretty small.
Yeah.
I like to believe we're the best at doing this in the world in terms of selecting and undressing and putting together, again, a solar power plant. We're as good at that as anybody. But we are really mission-driven on getting forever better at this, because there are billions and billions, really trillions of dollars, in fact, of solar energy projects all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's unclear exactly what their destiny is. Who will own them 20 years from now? Well, a lot of these projects are owned by short-tenured funds, or they have 15-year loans on them or other things.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And where do they go?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of them, if I have my way, will end up at energea.com. And we have to make sure we understand how to avoid risk and price these things correctly. And that's exactly what our underwriting procedures assist us in.
Yeah. I would imagine another way to reduce risk is a JV. I know your Brazil team early on had partnered with Brookfield, which is a world's largest energy asset owner, one of them at least. Is that a way where you can partner and reduce risk and get more confidence in something?
I mean, I think that's more or less our team showing off. We can partner with anybody who's in this asset class. We've done deals with the Goldman Sachs. We don't need a name drop, but we can play at that level.
Yeah. No, it's important.
But what we when I was getting started, to go the retail route, it's a pretty slow process of gathering assets under management. Yeah, I'm waiting for that next person to log into energea.com and invest $100. It's going to be a little while till we're at the billions of dollars.
Yep.
And that's really where asset managers start making real money. So we did these types of institutional deals as almost side missions to accelerate our access to fees while we wait for the platform community to continue to grow. And we did a number of those in our early years at Energea. We did one with BTG Pactual, which is a private equity firm based in Brazil. We did a deal with a listed trust in the UK, and we did the Brookfield deal. And those kind of got us through those incubation years.
Yeah.
But I've cut the umbilical cord on those. We don't need to do institutional deals any longer. So we're not making any more, most favored nation portfolios or, specialty portfolios just for, you know how Goldman Sachs always needs to feel special.
Yeah.
So they won't jump into the same portfolio that my neighbor is also participating in on the same terms and conditions.
Right.
Well, that's your choice, man. And from now on, our only offerings are our universal offerings. And that's all we need.
Goldman's mission is not to democratize investing. Let's put it that way, right? I mean,
Exactly. If they want to invest in our inventory, they have to come in through energea.com like everyone else.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's badass. One of the things you touched on earlier, just like really in passing, is some of these projects and how they're changing lives in remote regions.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've witnessed some stories or seen some things that make you want to cry probably.
Yeah.
Share a couple of stories about projects where not only is it a financial thing, but it's just life-changing for the people there.
All right, cool. One story that I was just watching the other day. So we make videos about the projects that we feel are most impactful, and those are all on energea.com. And there's one called the Zonvliet Care Facility. It's a Cape Town facility that basically, kids with extreme mental issues or children with some debilitating handicap that doesn't allow them to, go to a normal school and have a normal life. And there's this awesome guy who runs this facility. He has actually like a famous musician in South Africa. Like a lot of people know his old band.
Yeah.
But like as he grew up, he wound up taking care of this facility. Like I said, it's called Zonvliet Care Facility. Well, during load shedding, all the buildings in South Africa were turned off from the grid for 6 hours a day. So you are sitting here in this room filled with kids with mental issues, and all of a sudden the power's out for 6 hours. It was really made a difficult situation infinitely more difficult. Then we did an investment to power that facility. So we gave them solar and batteries through one of our development company partners. And then, maybe like 6 or 8 months later, I was in South Africa. I said, I want to go see some projects. I had my team assemble some meetings with me, and I really didn't know what I was stepping into, but we drove out to the Zonvliet Care Facility. I met the guy who runs the thing and just saw like, wow, this solar and these batteries is like, it's really a big deal for these guys. And I'm happy and proud to have done it. And by the way, it's been a great return for my clients. And it's just one of those win-win stories that I go back to. I've been thinking a lot about that project lately for some reason. Another one that's more recent is we bought a project from Macquarie, another infrastructure investor, Australia-based
the big
private
bank.
Equity firm.
Yeah.
Yep, you know them.
Yep.
They had a project for sale in Fresno, California at the Fresno Yosemite Airport. And we acquired it from them. And it had some old modules. This was like an OG solar project. And we had to replace all those modules with new modules, which we did. And then I had like hundreds of thousands of old solar panels. What are we going to do with these? We figured we would recycle them. So we found some guys in Yuma, Arizona that would recycle them. And as they were recycling, they're like, hey, half of these are perfectly good modules. Do you want me to shred them? And I said, no, wait a second. I thought about it. I said, well, what about Big Life? Going back to my nonprofit with Chris in Kenya.
Yeah.
So let's send them out there. So we boxed up thousands of solar panels from that recycling facility in Yuma, Arizona. And then it was like a train and a truck and a boat and a train and a truck and another boat. Somehow we get them out to Mbirakani, Kenya. And then we had all these panels sitting there. Said, all right, what are we going to do next? And Energea, this is for a nonprofit, not an investment for our clients. But we decided to start installing those solar panels on Maasai schools. Yeah. There's these schoolhouses there that have no electricity, no running water, and hundreds of kids will sleep on the floor of these schools because they walk so far to get to that school. They're not going to commute back and forth on a daily basis, and that makes not having electricity even kind of tougher and more dangerous. So we provided some solar power and battery backup systems for these schools in Kenya with the spent modules that from an investment that we had made in a for-profit context. And it's just cool just to see, how this impact continues to beget more impact. Clean energy is one part of it, but that's just the beginning of how impactful this stuff is.
You guys must have like an awesome perspective on life, like you obviously successful in business, but most people don't see that stuff. Yeah. Like people in the U.S., like if their power went out for an hour, they go bananas. Like it's the end of the world. Like I was in South Africa and I saw the power go out for 6 hours and I was like, yeah, the power's out. Like, it's just part of life. And then, obviously making a difference with kids with those kinds of handicaps. It's not only a great and profitable job and a lot of success, but really cool to be able to be a part of stuff like that, which I think most people have no shot at ever seeing. So really hats off to you guys on that one.
One of the things that I keep on learning, and I'm not done learning yet on this matter, is that I'm a huge patriot. Like I love the United States, really big fan. You won't get any complaints about my belief that this is the greatest country ever. But simultaneously, I'm holding in my head a different thought, which is that these other countries aren't so bad either. And Americans have kind of a natural disdain or poo-pooing of other countries. Yeah. But you haven't been there until you've been there and you've lived there and you have an apartment there and you've been there 50 times maybe. Then you start to really get to know these places. You're like, man, this place has some advantages over America. And maybe in advantages that no other Americans really, we'd gloss over and assume aren't theirs. But the world is a very large and diverse and curious place, and maybe the United States is the greatest country, probably is, but that's not to say that these other nations aren't equally interesting and fascinating and wonderful places to live. So I try to spend a lot of time explaining to my clients not to be scared about investing overseas, but embrace it and look at it as an opportunity, because so much capital is not going there, and therein lies the opportunity for oversized returns.
Are there any areas that you're not in that you'd like to make investments in or like piquing your interest?
I really like where we're at right now, but it's going to change. Markets are not static. So the flavor of the month, really the flavor of the last 5 years has been Brazil, but I can't anticipate that to remain hot for the next 10 years. So you have to kind of continue to see where the ball is going. And I think Southeast Asia has been very interesting to me for a while, but it's a very difficult time zone to work in, and it's a very long flight. And as I mentioned, I have to go to these places 20, 30 times before we invest our first dollar. And I think my clients have enough inventory right now to keep them occupied. So I haven't needed to really expand on that. But I could see us opening up a Southeast Asia product where Vietnam in particular seems like a market I want to be involved in. I also am looking at some deals in Italy. So Europe is a very tough place to find high yield.
Yeah.
But there are pockets of opportunities. And again, having access to capital and walking to the buying table with cash is a unique thing in this world. And we can transact quickly, and we know what we're doing in terms of the underwrite. So we can find high yield opportunities in Europe, I think. The question is can I get enough of that to merit an entire portfolio?
Yeah.
And that remains to be seen.
If you need an intern for Italy, I'm available to go over there 50 times to make sure that everything's okay. I guess my last question, Mike, is in running a company and building something great, you can only do a few things in any given year really well, in my opinion at least. Like, what are you jacked up about through the end of 26 and looking into 27 that you guys are really zeroed in on?
I would say what I'm most excited about right now is at our business getting to a phase where the amount of fees that we generate off of the managing that we do each month is greater than the amount of operating costs I have around this shop.
Yeah.
And we do that by managing really cool and exciting projects that I'm proud of and that my clients benefit from. So hitting that kind of great moment where our business is stable and kind of forever.
Yeah.
Our fees are for 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're good this year. We're good for the next 2 decades if we don't make another investment.
Unbelievable.
So that gives me a tremendous amount of comfort, especially being a bootstrapped company where we funded this more or less out of our private capital. So we're really, I'm excited to have built this and now having the patience I need to be a great investor. I don't have to invest. I only invest when I think it's accretive to my clients. And that level of patience, I think, is going to continue to help us deliver those double-digit returns.
That was Mike Silvestrini, co-founder and managing partner of Energea, and the website is energea.com. And everyone should go check it out. It's awesome. Mike and his partner Chris have taken a passion for investing in the global energy transition and really figured out a way to democratize great investments for institutions, high net worth individuals, and also the average investor. And that didn't exist in this space prior to Energea. Their success has attracted people and capital, which has brought great deals, which then attracts more people and capital. So it feels like Energea is a true flywheel, creating value for investors and doing a lot of good out there too. I'm Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.